Hi everybody, welcome to the Top 2 Inches of Sport podcast with me, Anthony Sheriff. This is a podcast about something that's always fascinated me, the mindset required to succeed in elite level sport. On this podcast, I'm going to talk to people who I really look up to in the world of sport and try to find out how they deal with the highs and lows that come with consistently striving for success in the unforgiving environment of elite sport. This week I spoke to professional footballer Ryan Johansson. Ryan's from Luxembourg. He has a Swedish father and an Irish mother, so he's actually represented Luxembourg, Ireland and Sweden at underage level. In this episode he explains how he came to play for 3 different countries and talks about his current international eligibility. At club level he's played for one of the world's biggest football clubs in Bayern Munich before moving to La Liga in Spain last year to play for Sevilla. Ryan talks all about his experiences at these huge football clubs and discusses in depth the importance he places on the mental side of the game. It was great to speak to a young footballer this week who's only at the very beginning of his journey in the game. I really genuinely enjoyed this one and hopefully you will as well. So here's this week's episode of the Top 2 Inches of Sport with professional footballer Ryan Johansson. Right, thanks very much Ryan for coming on to the podcast. I was doing some research on you and for such a young man, you're a very well-travelled man. I mean, I think you've played football in different countries, obviously lived in different countries for somebody so young. I think your parents are even from different countries. There's a bit of Irish in there somewhere. So just to start off, do you want to give us a bit of a background on yourself? So just talk a bit about where you grew up.
Yeah, sure. I was born in Luxembourg. My dad's Swedish and my mom's Irish. But obviously being in Luxembourg, a very small country, not the best for football, I kind of knew from a young age that I'd have to move countries and play for different teams in different countries.
Yeah.
So I played for Metz in France when I was about 13. I played for Leverkusen in Germany. And then when I was 16, I left home to play for Bayern Munich. And then, now I'm in Seville and I moved last January.
Yes. What part of Ireland is your mother from?
She's from Mullingar, so just outside of Dublin, yeah.
Yeah, so when you were young, did you travel to Ireland much? Did you get to visit Mullingar often?
Yeah, we had a house there. Green Park Meadows, I remember. And yeah, because my uncle and my grandfather and grandmother lived there. So
there's actually some stories of foreign footballers, like soccer players, that actually came over and spent some summers in Ireland. I think Xavi Alonso was quite a famous one. He spent some time in Meath and actually played Gaelic football at quite a high level. Did you ever give Gaelic football a go when you were in Mullingar?
Yeah. Gaelic football. We had hurling sticks as well. Played a bit of that, yeah.
You any good?
It was always fun.
Were you any good?
Gaelic football, yeah. Hurling, no, not at all. That was much tougher. But it was nice because there were so many kids on the street where we had the house, so
yeah,
we could kind of play with all of them. Usually football.
Yeah. Who would your football heroes have been growing up then? Not your Gaelic football heroes, your soccer heroes. And what team did you support?
I've always supported Arsenal.
All right.
Yeah, it's been in the family and just always supported that. Footballing heroes have it's always kind of been Messi, Lionel Messi. I mean, throughout my whole life, I've seen what he's achieved.
Yeah.
My short life so far, my childhood.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of been an amazing thing to grow up with, and him being one of the best players, if not the best ever, is obviously amazing to grow up with.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't play like him, I'm right-footed, but I just think he is the best player. And I always watched him in school. I'd always do like projects about him, write essays about him and his family. And he's definitely my footballing idol.
Yeah, he's unbelievable, isn't he? So you're saying you're a right footer. Am I right in saying that you're a right back / midfielder?
Yeah, well, in Bayern before I played a bit of right back, but now I'm more of a midfielder, center midfielder, sometimes left midfield, kind of more attacking.
Is that where you want to end up long term, like an attacking midfielder? Yeah.
Yeah, I prefer being in kind of the middle of the play, creating, assisting, scoring, stuff like that.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah. So when you were growing up then, obviously you were very good at football. That was probably obvious from a very young age. Can you remember a moment where like your kind of mindset shifted to I've actually got a really good chance here of making it as a professional footballer?
Actually, I never thought about it in the sense that I kind of knew it at the back of my mind. I think there was never any pressure on me. I liked school. I was good at school. So, and I went to a very, very good school, which I was very privileged to go to that school. So I had, options to do something in the kind of academic field. Obviously football was my dream since I was a kid, and I always wanted to do football, but I never thought that it was a real opportunity until I moved to Bayern. So probably when I was 15, when I signed, or when I knew I was going to sign the contract with Bayern, and then moved when I was 16, that was kind of the time where I was like, okay, like I really have a shot at becoming professional.
Okay, so did you have any interest outside of football then? Like you were saying you were quite good in school. Did you have any like aspirations to go and study any specific subject in university or anything like that?
Not specifically. I very much like kind of the creative academic field. So something to do with business and design.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I also love playing tennis. I played tennis for a club. Yeah, I mean, I had the kind of other interests other than football, but football, yeah, there was nothing to compare, obviously, to football. And
yeah.
That was always what I wanted to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first club you went to, you said, was Metz in France. Now, this is probably I probably wasn't as good in school as you. This will test my geography, but Luxembourg is kind of beside France, Germany, and Belgium. It's right in the middle of those countries, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
So yeah. Was Metz far from you, or did you have to move to play with them, or was it quite close?
No, yeah, I didn't have to move. It was 80 kilometers from my house, so it wasn't that bad. And the rules then, I still think the rules are if you're under, I think 15 or under 16, you can't travel more than 100 kilometers to play with a team. So it was kind of the perfect distance, and that's what a lot of Luxembourg players did who were lucky enough to go to a team outside of the country. Before they were 16, they would play for Metz. That was a very good stepping stone for a lot of Luxembourg players.
Imagine, yeah. What language did you speak growing up then? Because obviously your English is perfect, but I'm assuming you speak French as well, do you?
Yeah, I speak French, and then I lived in Germany, and I learned French and German in school, as well as English. So English, French, German, Luxembourgish, because I grew up in Luxembourg, and my dad's Swedish, so I speak Swedish, a bit of Swedish, and now I've learned Spanish.
And like you're probably fluent in all of those languages, yeah?
No, I mean, I've lost a bit of my Luxembourgish, but I could say I'm fluent in that. But Swedish and Spanish, I'm not fluent in. Spanish I can understand. It's still, coming along though. It's tough.
Did your mom ever teach you any Irish, any Mullingar?
She did when I was very young, but I don't remember, honestly.
Don't remember that.
It's a tough language.
Yeah. One of the main things I want to talk to you about is when you moved to Germany. Obviously, you were saying you went to Leverkusen first and then Bayern Munich. I'd be very interested to hear about the sports psychology situation, particularly in Bayern Munich, because obviously, one of the biggest clubs in the world, if not the biggest club in the world. But before I actually get onto that, I just wanted to ask you a bit about your international career at underage, because I did a bit of research on you, and I have to be honest, it was kind of hard to follow. I was a bit confused because I saw you were capped, I think, at under 16 a few times by Sweden, under 19 you played for Ireland, and Luxembourg, I think you played with Luxembourg at a few different age groups. So I was a bit confused. So do you want to just kind of give me a timeline of all the different countries you played for and how you managed to play for 3 different countries?
Yeah, sure. Well, I was born in Luxembourg, so I was eligible for the passport. But to get the passport, one of my parents had to have the Luxembourg passport first, and my mom and dad both lived there for 20 years already, so they could get the passport as well. So I got Luxembourg nationality because I was playing with the Luxembourg national team. Back then, I didn't really think Sweden and Ireland were much of not really a chance, but I didn't think much of it because I was just living in Luxembourg, and that was kind of, my goal at the time. And then, obviously moving to Bayern, that attracted attention from Ireland and Sweden. I played then first with Ireland, under 19, and then just 2 friendly matches, and then a friendly tournament with Sweden.
Yeah. So is it like that at underage level? Like you're actually, if you're not playing competitive football, are you able to chop and change and play for different countries so long as you've got like a parent from those countries? Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you have a passport from those countries, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. So where are you up to now then with your international status? Because obviously you're 20 years of age, so I think you're eligible for under 21s, obviously senior as well. So like, are you still possibly able to play for Luxembourg, Ireland, and Sweden, or have you already declared for the country, or where are you up to now?
Right now it's pretty confusing, pretty complicated. I'm not sure if I'm eligible for Ireland, and I know I'm for sure eligible for Sweden and Luxembourg. And no final papers and final decisions have been filed or anything, so it's a bit up in the air. But I honestly haven't thought about it kind of since moving to Spain. I feel Sevilla has been my main focus.
Yeah.
Which is, it is the most important thing for me right now in my career, is just club football. Yeah. But I definitely hope I can play for a country that I want to represent. The tough thing is, I was born in Luxembourg, so I feel I am Luxembourgish, and I love Luxembourg as a country. I always visited Ireland and Sweden. My parents, Irish and Swedish. I love both of those countries. So it's much tougher than just choosing a country, to play football with.
No, I can imagine. Yeah, just being so young as well, having to make that decision. Like, it sounds like you'd happily play for all three if you could.
100%.
Yeah, it's quite a high pressure decision. Hopefully, from our point of view, you'll end up wearing the green. And yeah, but just in terms of your club football, then you ended up. Obviously, you said you went to Leverkusen first, but then you ended up in Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich is such an interesting one because, as you know, it's a monster of a football club, an absolutely huge football club. When you first moved there, you said you were 16, 17. What's it like for a young player moving there? Just in terms of the setup, like, did they put you in digs? Like, did they put you living with families? Did they put you in an apartment by yourself? What's the living situation like?
Well, when I first moved there, there was a small campus for the younger players who moved away like without their parents.
Yeah.
And it was very small, 10, 12 of us. We stayed with one woman who was the best. She was very nice, and she took care of all of us. And that was right on the training ground. So it was perfect. But I moved there in June, and they had already started building their new campus, which is just a huge, it's insane. It's one of the biggest campuses in Europe, I think. And then I was playing international football with Sweden, and we moved in as I was gone. So then when I came back, I moved into the new campus, and now there's 40 or 50 young boys living there, from all over, mostly from North Germany, but from other places. I had friends from the US, from Holland, from England. So yeah, they have a huge campus set up now with multiple people taking care of the kids. They have chefs as well. It's honestly an amazing complex.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine as well that moving to Bayern Munich at such a young age, it must be a massive confidence booster that the biggest club in the world, or one of the biggest clubs in the world, wants you. But then when you get there, like, you're obviously going to be playing with some of the best young players in the world as well. How was your confidence when you moved there? Like, was it sky high because they wanted you, or when you get there and you see these other players you're playing with, is it almost a bit daunting in a way?
It was a bit daunting, 100%. I think personally, meeting new people and moving country, especially without my parents, moving at 16 is still quite young without your parents. So I was very shy, and I think, settling in was honestly pretty tough. But through all of the things that they did, for example, other English-speaking players, just going out with the team, and obviously the huge campus that they had, that really helped out. But of course, Bayern is a huge club, and that does give you a confidence boost, and it definitely makes you feel that you can succeed in what you're doing.
Yeah, well, I think most people think going to a big football club, it's the dream, and it is the dream. But at the same time, you don't think about some of the factors like you mentioned there. That you're so young. I can imagine you might have felt lonely, homesick at times. Like,
Yeah.
was that an issue? And like, did your parents get to visit you quite regularly?
Yeah, well, I'm very close to my parents.
Yeah.
And of course, my mom wouldn't just let me move off and not ever visit me.
Irish mammy, isn't it?
Exactly. So they still lived in Luxembourg, and it's around a 5-hour drive. And they made that basically to every single one of my matches, which was every single weekend. So they drove down 5 hours to see the match and 5 hours back, pretty much every single weekend, which was obviously insane. But it was the best thing for me settling in to always see them. Of course, my mom would make me food and bring me that and wash my clothes and everything. So yeah, they definitely, they helped me out with a lot.
Fair play to them. What about the sports psychology setup then in Bayern Munich? Because again, you can imagine they probably got, in terms of all the other sports sciences like, you know, the strength and conditioning, nutrition, I can imagine they'll have all the top sports scientists in Germany working within the club. Was there much emphasis put on sports psychology there in your time?
Yeah, not much the first year. That was U17, and they didn't really focus that much on the younger kids. Okay. But then in U19, I talked with a sports psychologist, Christian Lutot. He was first team in Schalke, sports psychologist, first team Bayer Leverkusen. He lived in Seville as well. He worked for Sevilla. So that's pretty funny. When I left there, he told me all about Seville. And yeah, he was very good. And that was definitely a big emphasis in U19 when, 17, 18, 19-year-olds talking about whatever issues. And I think they definitely handled that well. I know they do take, those things seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would it have been a lot of group work he would have been doing, or would you have actually met with him one-to-one?
Both. So if you ever wanted to meet with him, he would, make a time, schedule an appointment. And then we also did group things, like some mindfulness programs, some meditating, some kind of yoga, just calming exercises as a group, as a team.
What would you say he added to you, maybe even added to your performance on game day? Was there any big takeaways you had from your sessions with him?
I think very much preparing for a match. Yeah. I think that definitely helped. I kind of always went into a match not necessarily the same way, and kind of you can have different mindsets, of course, in different matches that you play. If I'm playing Borussia Dortmund, obviously I'm going to be more nervous, more pumped up, more excited than if I'm playing a lower league team in Germany. Yeah. But he really helped me kind of get a routine in each match, and to always, keep the same. And I think that just really helps keep your mindset the same, keep you focused, keep you, very concentrated on what the task is ahead.
Yeah, definitely. So I think most players will obviously have a physical routine that they will go through before a game. They have the same kind of structure before each game. But what if you were to describe your mental process before the game? Like, is there certain things that you need to do? Is there certain things you focus on before a game? What would your process be mentally before a game?
Well, I honestly do most things mentally when I'm preparing for a game. I think physically is throughout the week. That's training. That's making sure your body's fit. Yeah. But mentally, a lot of times I imagine kind of what the game is going to turn out to be. Yeah. So what I'm going to do in the game, what happens if we concede, what happens, if we're leading, kind of my roles in the team and what I can do for the team and individually. Yeah. I kind of just take a moment by myself, a few minutes, close my eyes and just imagine those things. And that really helps. I think that's really important.
Yeah, cool. So one interesting part of your career at Bayern as well is you went on a tour to, I think it was America, with the first team. You played some big teams. You played Arsenal, Tottenham, I think even Juventus. Did you play Juventus as well?
Yeah.
So that's in front of thousands and thousands of people. So I actually looked at the squad that went, like Manuel Neuer, Thomas Muller, I think Lewandowski, maybe Thiago. These are like World Cup winners, European Cup winners, modern day greats. So what I'd be interested to know is if you could take us into the dressing room before that game. So you're sitting around these complete football and modern day greats, like I said, legends. So to them, it's probably just a pre-season game to get their match fitness and their sharpness there. But for you, it's probably the biggest day of your life. So it's such a contrast there in emotions. What are these boys like with you? Like, did they take you aside and have a few words with you?
Well, at the time I was playing right back. So the right wing was Iron Robin, who's obviously Iron Legend.
Yeah.
And he was amazing. He talked to me, helped me out during training, and kind of showed me what to do, how to help myself, how to help him, obviously, because he's such an important part, and he was such an important part in Bayern's game. And he was very good. I think a lot of the older players were good. For example, Rafinha, when he was playing Bayern, he was a right back as well. So he definitely helped me. And I honestly think the confidence of these players are, of course, very high. I mean, they're amazing football players, so that does calm you down. I remember walking out and against Arsenal, for example, and I just looked up because we're playing in Philadelphia and like in the Eagles Stadium, in the NFL Stadium, and that's like 80,000 capacity, and it just goes straight up. It's not really like an oval shape; it's just like straight up.
Yeah.
So I was just looking straight up. I wasn't even looking where I was walking, and just somebody put their like arm on my shoulder, which I remember. That just like calmed me down. That just got me ready for the game. And yeah, for example, when I played in the Allianz Arena in Munich, then there was a packed stadium, 80,000 fans.
Yeah.
And you obviously hear it, but once the whistle blows, that just kind of all goes away. You're all so concentrated in the game and what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I feel, just being very concentrated, obviously preparing for the game mentally before, but being very focused. You kind of just block that out, just block everybody shouting whatever. And of course, concentrate on the game.
Yeah, because I can imagine playing, like, I always think, I'm probably a bit biased because I'm a Liverpool supporter, but I always think the 5 biggest clubs in the world are Liverpool and Man United, the 2 big ones in Spain, Barca and Real, and Bayern Munich. I always think those 5 clubs, even in a pre-season friendly, it's not really a friendly because you kind of can't lose or draw because it's almost a disaster in the fan base. People are just getting on your back. So, like, as such a young lad, you're playing with one of, again, in my opinion, one of the top 5 clubs in the world. And again, it is a friendly. Like, that is your chance to learn and to make mistakes. But did you actually feel that pressure of, not just because you're playing senior football for the first time, but you're playing for a club that there is no real margin for error? Did that ever come into your thinking, or like you said, were the senior professionals good at taking that pressure away from you?
That definitely did, come into my mindset. It was very stressful, obviously, before the game, and there's nothing that can prepare you for the feeling of walking out and playing against amazing players. Just standing next to, say, marking on a corner, and you're standing next to a great player in Juventus, Arsenal, Man City, PSG that I played against. It is very daunting and very scary in a way. You do have to remember that you're not doing this just to play against those players. You're doing it for your career and to kind of move on and to play against other teams, better teams. And obviously at the time, that's very tough. I mean, as you said, I was 17. So being at that kind of in that place, playing in those matches, it was, very scary, but also very cool for a 17-year-old boy playing against those great players. Of course, it was an amazing experience.
Experience. I can imagine so few 17-year-olds will ever experience something like that. So I can only imagine. At that level of football, what is the technical and tactical information you're given? Because sometimes football fans can kind of annoy me slightly, because I'm usually I try my best not to be ever really critical of a footballer or of a football manager, because like they clearly know so much more than I know. Like we can only see what we see on the television. Like, you know, like sometimes we judge a player as fans just by what they do on the ball, whereas I'm sure there's players doing jobs off the ball that tactically I just wouldn't understand. So I just can't appreciate that. So that's why it annoys me sometimes when people criticize footballers or managers, because I just don't think, unless you've been at that level, you don't understand. So when you're playing at that level, how much tactical information are you given before a game? Or is there any element of go out and when you get the ball, you can actually express yourself? Or is it very rigid instructions you're given?
I feel in Bayern it was very free-flowing in the sense of the offensive, as in like on attack. It was very free-flowing. As you can see, Bayern has so many players that can switch positions, very versatile players that can, kind of play anywhere. So they do have a very free-flowing game and a possession-heavy game. So they have the ball most of the game. Defensively, it's definitely very tactical. I remember sitting with the team and the coaches, talking tactics on corners, free kicks, counterattacks, everything really, on what to remember. And that was definitely tough, as well as a young kid as well, remembering every single thing and knowing how important it is as well. And for me as a defender at that time, I definitely knew how important that was. So that is very strict, 100%.
Yeah, again, it's just something you don't really think about when you're just a casual. Like, I'm a big football fan, but again, I don't know much about like football at that level. So like, it just looks to us normal people like that, we're just looking at 11 people going out and just playing freestyle. But obviously, there's so much to remember. Is there almost like a lot of homework involved? Like you going home and having to remember certain, like almost do a bit of study?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, studying is a bit voluntary in that sense, which I love to do. I love to look at film. I love to look at different videos. Especially during this time with lockdown.
Yeah.
Pretty much the whole time I wasn't training, I was looking at matches that were broken down, which Sevilla were so good with. They like cut certain matches from the Sevilla team. Obviously now center mid, I could look at Rakitic, I can look at Jordan, I can look at Oliver Torres, I can look at all those players. So I very much like doing that.
Yeah.
But I think it is very important to kind of analyze the opponents, analyze yourself as well, going back and looking at mistakes and things you did good. And yeah, the pros definitely do that. There's definitely, it's not just on the pitch. I mean, we all know that, but I think a lot of it's also just analyzing what you just did on the pitch as well.
Yeah. Now, in some cases, I can imagine that can go too far as well. I've spoken to athletes in the past who said after a performance, specifically after a bad performance, they kind of can't let it go. They can't get it out of their head. It can haunt them. Like Jamie Carragher, actually, a former Liverpool player, he famously spoke about after a bad performance or a loss, he basically couldn't sleep, and he was just desperate to get out and play again because he just had to put it right, had to get that bad performance out of the system. So, like, what would you be like after a performance? Obviously you'll analyze what you did well and what you can learn from, but are you good at taking the good from that and also taking the bad but learning from the bad and moving on? Or is that something you need to work on? Does it kind of like, would a bad performance haunt you for a few days?
I have worked on it, but it is definitely something I do have to work on more. I'm very critical of myself, so if I have a bad performance, I obviously want to analyze that and want to get better. I feel before, when I was younger, I definitely wouldn't let myself sleep. It wasn't a thing where, I can't sleep. It would be like, you're not allowed to, you don't deserve to eat dinner, or you don't deserve to, because you didn't do a good job, which is obviously not the case at all. One of the important things is obviously, life as well is learning from your mistakes, but also moving on from them. And I've definitely worked on that a lot. One thing that I do a lot is if I mess up a pass or I mess up a shot, I kind of fling my arms kind of just by my side. And then that memory then stays in your head that you just flung your arms and you feel a bit bad. So moving on, kind of switching your mind to just think, next play, is very important. Actually, in Bayern, the psychologist put it like this, which actually helped me a lot, is imagine a mistake is like you spilled water on the ground and you're trying to pick that water up with your hands, which is obviously impossible, and you won't ever pick that water up, pick that mistake up. And that very much helped me kind of move on from just always overthinking, always trying to, relive that mistake.
Have you flipped that on its head? Like you're saying, you kind of fling the arms when you make a mistake. There's the New Zealand rugby team, the All Blacks. They do these refocusing or recentering techniques. So if they touch your ear, if anyone's kind of getting angry or if they're kind of losing control of the game, they just touching the ear thing, and it kind of I can't remember the exact thing they do, but basically that kind of triggers these happy thoughts. They would have worked with psychologists on this, but when they touch the ear, it kind of calms them down. They think of something different rather than letting their mind spiral on the negative moment that has just happened. So instead of like you've obviously identified the arm fling as a negative. Is there any way you could flip that, and maybe if you're feeling bad within a game, kind of come up with a little physical cue that could just recenter you?
Yeah, I have one. I always wear a hairband.
All right, yeah.
On my wrist, so I flick it, and then that kind of just it doesn't hurt obviously, but you feel it. So whenever I feel that, I'm like, okay, move on. Yeah. You know, that's just kind of one thing I had. I know somebody, I think it was a rugby player who did this, but I can't remember who. And I saw that, I just saw a video about it, and yeah, I always have a hairband here as well, long hair. So just always do that and kind of resets, move on.
Yeah, no, there's loads of examples like that in sport. The New Zealand one just came to my head there. There's also Rafa Nadal does one in tennis. If he's bouncing the ball more so than usual, you can tell that he's just had a bad moment and he's just trying to recenter his mind. He's just bouncing the ball just to refocus. But so that's just negative moments within the game. How would you say, at dealing with setbacks in general? So I'm talking about bigger setbacks than a bad pass. I'm talking about maybe an injury, or if you're dropped for a game. Would you be the type to get very down about that, or do you maybe give yourself a few moments to have a little sulk and then you move on, or like how would you deal with setbacks?
I definitely think giving myself a moment to just, a lot of things you can do just in the moment, in the spur of the moment, and if it's a negative thought, it's probably going to be wrong. That we've all learned from experience, of course. So yeah, what I think is important is just to kind of take a minute to breathe in and out. People who are very good are my parents. If, for example, I get my injury, I just was injured for 6 weeks. So I got my injury and directly called my parents. And yeah, they're obviously a big help, and they know what to say, the right things to say. And I mean, there are people in everyone's lives who you can just call up and make you feel better. And that's much better than making yourself spiral, thinking of your own thoughts. Me not playing 6 weeks was obviously a setback, but now I've come back and I feel much stronger than I felt the whole of last year.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a blessing in disguise to make me stronger, mentally and physically. So yeah, but I definitely think talking about your problems, talking about even if it's a physical injury, it definitely affects you mentally.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think my parents are very good people for that, and of course I've close friends that I can talk about as well.
Yeah. For someone so young, you seem very mature. You seem very very aware of the importance of of your mindset. So I think sometimes a lot of the time, actually, young footballers get a very bad reputation. They get wrongly criticised for being like a bit silly and stupid and things like that. Whereas clearly, it's the case, but like at the top level, the level you're playing at, do you think would most footballers buy into sports psychology and things that you have clearly bought into?
I definitely think so.
Yeah.
I think a lot about how important the mind is.
Yeah.
Because of my dad, he played football and he was an amazing footballer, and he tore his Achilles, and he could never play football again. Obviously, back then there was no chance he could play again, and he always studied on the side, and he always kept his mind straight, and he went on to study law. and that really saved his life in the sense that he had a plan B, and he always knew that football is not 100% for 100% of your life. That's never, you can never do that for your whole life. And yeah, I've always been aware that is so important. That the mind comes first and the feet come second. I've, always been told that and always live by that in a sense.
Yeah, it's a brilliant attitude to have, and a brilliant kind of mentality to be brought up with from your father. What level of football did your father play?
He played in Sweden, and he played for IFK Gothenburg, so first league teams. He was in youth teams for a Swedish national team, and yeah, he was very good. He was actually in the stadium when Gothenburg won the UEFA Cup. It was back then.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Against Hamburg.
All right.
So very long time ago.
I think you have a brother as well, don't you? Does he play football?
I do, yeah, and he does. He was a very good footballer when he was younger, but he kind of chose to go the school way, and he studied in Dublin. He studied in UCD.
All right.
Yeah. So he lived there for 4 years, I think, and now he's living in Luxembourg, and he's playing football in Luxembourg.
Is he playing professionally as well?
No, right now, no. He just started again playing football because he was just studying and working to get his degree. But yeah, he's 22, turning 23, and I never think it's too late to get back into football, because I mean a lot of players have done it, and I think football's obviously great, and he's very talented as well.
Keep an eye out for him. I want to ask you about when you left Bayern Munich then for Sevilla, or not Sevilla, Sevilla is the way you say it, isn't it? Sevilla.
Yeah.
But you left Bayern for Sevilla. It's brave for a young player to leave one of the biggest clubs in the world, but it's something that I definitely respect. Young players wanting to go out and actually play football rather than getting less opportunities at a bigger club. What was the thought process in leaving Bayern for Sevilla?
Well, Sevilla had kind of seen me when I played for the Bayern first team against Tottenham in the Audi Cup, and that was kind of towards the end of the summer 2019. So, my mindset was, I'm 18, turning 19 soon, and I really want to have the opportunity and feel like I have the opportunity that I can play with, obviously, a top team professionally. And I think it's very tough to do that in Bayern Munich. Yeah. And I definitely thought that there was a chance, but I thought that Sevilla would be a better option for me, better option career-wise. And football-wise, I think their style of play and the Spanish style of play is definitely my style as well. So I just felt that I was kind of listing things, kind of pros and cons, and just everything was checking its boxes to move to Seville.
Yeah.
And in the end, I honestly was just very excited to move. I think Bayern, I learned so much from that club, and I'm grateful for that. And I think they are, as you said, top 5 club in the world. But I definitely think moving to Seville was the best decision I made.
Yeah. How was your Spanish when you first moved?
It was horrible. I knew no Spanish at all.
How is it now?
It's okay. I mean, I understand it now. So, for example, I can have a conversation with someone if they do most of the conversation. But it's a bit tough, especially here in Seville and in kind of the southern regions. They speak very fast and they speak very unclearly. So, yeah, that's a bit tough. But, yeah, it's coming along.
Yeah, that must have been tough, like merging, which I'm sure you're getting lots of Spanish lessons, merging that with your training as well. So how much Spanish lessons are you getting? Would you be doing it every single day?
I was doing it pretty much every single day last year. Just kind of, especially through lockdown, when we didn't have training for about 4 months. It was just constant Spanish lessons, constant kind of videos with football. Yeah, and that obviously kind of helped in a way, just me being at home studying Spanish and learning that. And yeah, I feel that did get my Spanish a lot better.
Before lockdown, how stressful is it? And I sometimes think about this in terms of players moving to the English Premier League from abroad as well. How stressful is it when you're sitting in a dressing room and the manager is giving instructions and you haven't got a clue what he's saying?
It's very stressful. It definitely is. Yeah, I mean, the stressful part is at the end of the talk, they just walk out and they say, okay, we're done. Luckily, that was never the case in Seville. They came to me and they said, okay, Ryan, we're doing this. We'll show you now. There was a guy who spoke very good English in the coaching staff. And that was, I was very grateful for that. But yeah, I've definitely had those feelings before where I have no idea what's going on. Thankfully that hasn't happened now.
So you spoke a bit earlier as well about the sports psychology setup in Bayern Munich. How would it compare to in Sevilla? Would there be a big emphasis put on that side of things in Sevilla as well, or not so much?
Yeah, I think it's very equal in that sense. We've done teamwork. I've done individual work, and we have a personal psychologist for our team, for the second team. I know the first team have an emphasis on that. And yeah, I mean, one good thing about Sevilla is that the psychologist watches every single training that we have. She's always there every single day. I feel in Bayern, the psychologist was a bit more busy. You know, it was a huge campus. There's loads of teams training there. So I completely understand that, but we kind of have a psychologist and she's very based on our team. And I feel it's a bit more personal in that sense. For example, if I'm just having a bad day, I can go to her after training. She'll just be standing there on the sideline and say, yeah, can we talk about this? I need to improve on this mentally. Give me some tips, for example. And I think that's very good. And it's also very Spanish in a way, very personal, very open. I'm definitely not used to that. I am more now, but living in Germany and Luxembourg and being Swedish, of course, a bit more closed off in the sense of speaking. But here, you know, you come in, everybody hugs you. It's very open to talk about whatever you want. So, yeah.
And is that the way you would work with the psychologist? Like, would you be the type of athlete that maybe wait to feel like something isn't right, or would you try check in with her every week or every 2 weeks anyway, even if you're feeling good, just to kind of get it as part of your routine?
I like to check in with her at times, but I feel like I definitely don't do it enough, in the sense that I could just on a random day just say, you know, can we have a talk? Can we just chat about whatever? I am good in talking about problems with my friends, my parents. You know, just being open with them. And I think that is easier if you have a personal relationship with someone. I mean, of course, that's easier to talk about whatever you want. But I mean, she can also just come and pull you aside and just say, how you doing? Do you want to have a talk today? And then, you know, usually just say yes, because it is a nice thing to do and a nice thing to offer. And yeah, I mean, I definitely don't wait for a big problem to arise. And if I'm feeling down and I'm not sure why, or if I'm not training well and I'm physically fit, then obviously there must be mentally something going on. But yeah, that's kind of it.
I guess, you mentioned there a few minutes ago about lockdown. So lockdown, like for footballers, I sometimes think it must have been doubly difficult, because you didn't have the joys of the rest of us. The rest of us could just get fat and enjoy it. You know, you obviously have to stay fit, but also you're actually missing the group dynamic that you're so used to. Like every day of your life, pretty much, you're going to be going in training with whatever 20, 25 lads. and then all of a sudden, bang, just like that, it's gone, and you're isolated, you're locked down. How
Yeah.
did you personally find lockdown first time around?
I obviously hated it like everyone else. I personally found it pretty hard. I, I mean, I just moved to Spain, so I didn't know many people. I didn't have many friends. And most of my friends were, I was contacting through Zoom, through FaceTime, through calls,
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely thought it was tough at the start, especially around the time when we were doing Zoom trainings, because I had to train then in my room, and I just had a yoga mat, and that was just tough. And I just remember hating those trainings because I felt that I wasn't getting, much from it, but it was the best that the club could do
Yeah.
because there was nothing else that we could do.
Yeah.
One thing that really helped me was my parents being here because they moved to Spain and they were looking for a house, and right when they were looking for a house, lockdown. So it was, of course, impossible to move into a new house. So they did stay with me for quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then once restrictions were a bit easier, I did have friends come and visit, which made it much better. But I also just think kind of staying aware of the situation, not ignoring the fact that, this is lockdown, this is going to be for a long time, for the foreseeable future for now.
Yeah.
I think me just realizing that at the start, I was like, I can't wait to get out of this. Like, I need to stop, being inside. I need to stop being cooped up. I think, really just realizing that it's going to be like this for a while and that I need to make the best of it. And in situations where I don't have training and I don't have people to talk to or stuff to do, that I just need to kind of do stuff for myself. I thought that was very important for me during lockdown.
How long were you locked down for first time around in Spain?
I honestly don't remember. It was a very long time. It was 4 or 5 months, maybe more.
Is that have absolutely no training whatsoever?
Yeah, exactly. No training.
So, like, I mean, aside from the mental side of things, physically, when you went back, surely, like, the fitness levels must have dropped dramatically, did it?
Oh yeah, 100%. Luckily, professional athletes were allowed to run outside at whatever times they wanted. So we could go running, and that was a big part of the training, and to stay fit, of course. Everybody's weight went up, everybody's fitness went down. It was definitely, it was tough to get back. And then doing preseason in my first summer in Seville, it was very tough. Training in 38-degree weather was, that was tough.
I can imagine. How different is training in Spain to the other countries you played in? Like, I mean, do you train earlier? Do you train for shorter periods because of the heat? How different is it?
Well, we train earlier, so we always train in the morning, which I love. I love training in the morning, getting up and directly being productive. And in the summer it's earlier and earlier. So we could start at like 9:30. Right now it's more like 10:30, 10:45. Nicer, longer sleeping. But I think it's very good in the morning, and it's impossible to play in the afternoon. Even the Spanish players know that, especially for me. But luckily we don't have, for example, matches in the summer in the afternoon.
Yeah. That's the training side. And what about the actual match, like the matches behind closed doors? How do you find that experience? Because I haven't been following the Spanish League. I don't know what the results are looking like, but I know in the English Premier League, some of the results are crazy. I think there's never been so many victories away from home by any team. Like, there's basically just no home advantage for obvious reasons. There's no fans. As a player, what's it like?
Definitely the home advantage. You feel that, and you felt that when the fans were there, that you got that extra bit of motivation, even though, as I said before, you kind of cancel out the noise, in inside that noise and that cheering is for you when you're at home. I think a lot of players have benefited from there being no fans. I'm not sure. I kind of like having fans there, but just in the sense that it's a much nicer atmosphere, a much happier atmosphere.
Yeah.
For example, walking onto the pitch and the 10 people that I see in the crowd, which are all just officials wearing masks, it's not the joyful football atmosphere that, you know, I'm used to and that I love. I've watched loads of football matches live, a lot of Premier League matches, so I know the real atmosphere of matches and how it's supposed to feel.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I do prefer it with fans. But I mean, there is a bit of a less stress kind of factor without people there, that you know have kind of a calmer mindset in a sense.
Yeah, I can see how that is the case. But
Yeah.
when there's no fans there, like, is there? Although you're aware, obviously, it's a real match. Like, is it after a few minutes? Does it almost fall into a bit of a training match feel in your head?
Yeah, that's very interesting because a lot of players, I mean, we obviously talk about that, and a lot of my teammates have definitely expressed that you know, it does feel kind of like just two teams from the same club are just playing against each other.
Yeah.
I think what's very important in that sense is, as I said before the game, to be in a very, you know, concentrated mental state and prepare for every single game the same as you'd prepare for the matches with fans.
Yeah.
And, you know, every single game, especially in our league, is incredibly important. So obviously, if you lose a training match, that has nothing to compare to if you lose a league match. So just being aware of that and just, obviously wanting it much more than just a training match. But I definitely understand that if there's no fans, and it is a bit worse.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think anybody that thinks the fans can't give the team a boost or the fans don't give the home team an advantage, I think the last year has completely disproven those people.
100%. The fans have a huge role, I think, in the home team.
100%. What about the rest of your career then? I know obviously you're only starting off, you're only a baby in football terms, but what would your future goals be? Obviously, you don't know where you're at in terms of international football yet, but in terms of club football, I think you're contracted to Sevilla for the next good few years, aren't you? Would you have aspirations to maybe one day play for Arsenal or get off to the Premier League?
I mean, I think La Liga and Premier League are the two top leagues. They produce the best players, and you know, Champions League shows that. I think ambitions wise is just to be the best player that I can be. I know that I have, you know, a good potential and that I can be a good player, and by working I can reach that. And I think that's a very, you know, reasonable goal to set for yourself. I love Arsenal and I've always loved Arsenal. So of course that would be an amazing thing to play for them. But that's more on a personal kind of note. I feel career-wise, Arsenal's not the best team to go for right now. So yeah.
Probably wasn't a fair question for me to ask you now, but outside of football, have you, like you said before, you were quite good in school. Would you be interested in maybe, you know, studying something even while you're playing, just to maybe put something in place for when you are finished playing football?
Yeah, 100%. I'm doing online courses right now, which I think are important. For example, I train in the morning, and then in the afternoon I have time to kind of do what I want and what kind of gets me sitting up, not just lying down in bed all day.
What kind of courses are you doing?
Right now I'm doing a design course on clothing, into design and drawing and fashion. So that's cool. I did a business and economics course earlier this year. Just a very kind of freeing experience. Obviously, studying isn't the most fun, but I'm in a situation where I can study what I want when I want. So I count that as a very lucky situation. So yeah.
No, that's good stuff. Look, it was brilliant hearing all about your life and career. But there is a question I want to ask you at the end that I ask everybody, and that is that if you were to pick one athlete in the history of sport, it can be from any sport, that you would admire most from a mentality or mindset point of view, who would you admire the most and why?
Muhammad Ali. I that was just a quick answer because I've always kind of thought that. I think confidence-wise, you really saw that he always thought that he was the best and always knew it. I think confidence is a huge thing in sport, in any sport. And yeah, from personal experience in football, if you're going into a match with no confidence, you've already lost that game. So yeah, his mindset towards that, towards him always being the best. And also towards the end of his career, he was getting older and everybody said he was getting much worse, which statistically he was, but he didn't give up and he fought for quite a long time and a long career. So yeah, I think he's definitely one of the most influential sports athletes ever, and the greatest.
Yeah, you can't argue with Muhammad Ali. If I was to just limit it to footballers, is there any footballers that stand out in terms of their strong mindset?
Oh, footballers. That's a very good question. I'm not sure.
I suppose you mentioned Messi, your admiration for Messi, his like Messi and Ronaldo, obviously just how relentless they've been as well, haven't they?
Yeah.
They must be what is Messi, 35, is he?
I think so, yeah. Mid 30s.
He's still going strong.
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously their mentalities are insane. Also the strive to get more and more, and to always want more. I think that's insanely impressive. So yeah, definitely.
Look, we leave it there. I've taken enough of your time, but thanks a million, Ryan, for coming on to the podcast today. It's brilliant hearing all about your career, and best luck for this season and for the rest of your career. I'll be keeping an eye out for you and hopefully seeing you playing for Ireland someday. So thanks a million.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks very much to Ryan Johansson for coming on to the podcast this week. It was brilliant to have a young footballer who's only starting out his journey in the game coming on and talking about the mental side of the game, and also the experiences he's had with sports psychologists in the football clubs he's been at. Bayern Munich, obviously being the big one of the biggest football clubs in the world, but also at Sevilla as well. It was brilliant to hear how much emphasis he actually puts on the mental side of the game. And I think sometimes, as I said to Ryan in the episode, sometimes young footballers in particular get a bad rap in terms of their reputation, but clearly he's a very mature young fella, a deep thinking man, and he just seems to have all the right attributes and the right mentality definitely to make a very successful career in the game. So thanks a million, Ryan, for coming on, and we'll all be keeping an eye out for your career. Thanks everyone for watching as well, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.